Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala khatam al-anbiya wa mursaleen Sayyidina Muhammad wa alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Wa ba'd. There were a number of questions, some that were repeating themselves, and also some that were a little bit distant from the topic. So we've tried to bring together those that could be of benefit and those where there is a possible response to it. And the issue of deception, I mean, what I am attempting to do with this study is not to give you the final conclusion concerning deception and its many forms, but to try to open up this issue in your minds. Because it is something that could take a person a whole lifetime to try to understand the complexities about what is happening in this world. And there is so much deception going on different levels within society. And I don't claim to have all of the answers to this. I claim to be a student of the present world situation that we are living in. And I hope, inshallah, that Allah would bless you and people of conscience, especially from the Muslim Ummah, to be able to clear their vision and to get good insight as to what is happening in the world. One of the questions is saying, what do you mean by there will be a time when people will recite the Quran in melodious tones, but it won't go past their throats? Basically what this means is that the Prophet ﷺ is talking about that a time would come when people would be reading the Quran in very beautiful, melodious ways, even following the rules of tajweed. But it would not go to their heart, meaning it would not affect them. So if Allah is saying, Aqimus salah wa atuz zakat, establish prayer, and you should also give the zakat. And a person reads this, and other people are listening and say, Ya Allah, Allah, when he reads the verse. And then Asr comes, and they don't make salat. Or the person who reads the Quran itself, reads it in a very beautiful tone, and he doesn't pay zakat. So he's read it in a beautiful way, but it didn't apply to himself. And when the early Sahaba, radiallahu anhum, used to deal with the Quran, they would deal with it ayah by ayah, section by section, small amounts, and practice. Not large amounts just to read like parrots, right? But you're reading it for a number of you're reading it not only for the tilawa, but tadabbur, ayatihi, itba, awamirihi. You're reading it to reflect on the verses and to put it into practice. And so this time has come that we are living in. And you've seen many situations where people are moaning and groaning when the Quran is being read. And as soon as it's done, they go right out and disobey Allah. So really, that is not, this tanzil came not as a nice song. You could listen to Michael Jackson or somebody and cry too. It's not like music that people listen to and it changes their emotions. This is the words, this is kalamullah. This is the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's supposed to affect us not only emotionally, but it should affect us in our life. The other question is how does somebody purify their heart? Now, this is an issue that the great scholars of Islam have studied, for many centuries. And in the Quran and in the hadith, sayings of the Prophet, peace be upon him, there is much guidance. And what happens with many of the issues is that the scholar will look at, for instance, the diseases of the heart. So they will describe to you the problem, and then they will show you what is the way to fight this problem. Like, for instance, one of the diseases is takabbur, kibriya, like pride and arrogance. And so they say, if you are proud of yourself, you're proud of your clothing, you're proud of the way you look and who you are and whatnot, they said, number one, you should reflect upon yourself in relationship to Allah. Really think about this. Because no matter how beautiful you think you are now, we all came from a very ugly place, in the sense that nobody wants to look like what we look like when we were being formed in the womb of the mother. Also, one day we will all return to the earth. And when we die, nobody wants to follow you down into that hole. So really, what do we have to be proud about when this life is only a fleeting thing? So the scholars say, remember yourself in relationship to the creator of the heavens and the earth. If you have too much pride, then one of the action ways, serve people. You serve people. You think you're big and proud and you're a special person, then you take some time, you invite some people over your house, or you go to an occasion and you serve them. You serve the food. So you're no longer the big chief and the big sharif and the big queen. You serve the food to the other people. Humble yourself to other Muslims. Wear clothing, that is not so nice sometimes. Be humble and simple sometimes. And then in this way, it fights off that false pride that comes into the heart. The hasad, we have to remember, if jealousy is in our heart, you have to remember that if somebody has some good in their life, it is a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And really, money and wealth is not necessarily a blessing. In many cases, money is a curse. And it has come into our ummah, and there are some parts of the nation who had strong masculine people, strong feminine, good Muslims, and when they got some money, they changed. Their whole outlook changed. And they became arrogant. And this has happened throughout our history. Maybe this is why the Prophet, peace be upon him, has said that every nation there is a test, and the test of this nation is wealth. Right? It is too much, it's like getting too much wealth. So you need to read, there are a number of texts that go into the amrad al-qulub, the diseases of the hearts. What are the cures? You need to try to find some of these texts. But I think, really the essence of it is, your intentions. And, it's not a complicated definition in the sense that we need to really purify ourselves and humble ourselves before Allah. If we do this, then we can begin to look at other creations in another way. Another question is saying, is it better to stay in the West or to make hijrah to the land of the Muslims? Really now, there's a saying that began about 20 years ago or so, and now it's really come to fruit in the sense that the whole world is like a global village. Okay, and really, the barriers between countries and cultures have decreased and have changed radically, especially in the past 10 years with the internet and with the communication systems that people are sharing throughout the planet. So really at this point, there's no East and no West like it used to be. There's no East and West. And some of the Muslim countries, I'm sorry to say it, are more oppressive than living right here in Australia. Because in Australia and in South Africa, I can say that from South Africa also, there are people, you can reason with people. But in some of our own countries ruled by tyrants, you can't reason with them, man. If you disagree with them, they throw you in jail, man. You forget about lawyer. Lawyer? That's a joke, man, in some of these countries. Lawyer? Are you Majnoon or something? Lawyer. What is this? So I mean, we have to respect, the fact, the goodness in some of the countries that we live in. And what you have to recognize is that Islam is not something which is just controlled by Muslims. Because part of Islamic culture, the establishment of justice, the qadi, the judge and the system and the courts and whatnot, this was passed by Muslims in Andalusia to the Spanish, and then the Spanish passing it on to other European cultures. So many of the laws, even in this country, and the setup of the courts and the educational system, much of this comes directly from Muslims themselves. So, there are some Islamic tendencies in this country itself, in the people of this country. This is why I say when you give da'wah, you have to realize that every person is born as a Muslim. They have the ability to submit to the Creator is within every human being. It is not the property of any master race. Allah has sent prophets and messengers to every tribe. And so we should try to appreciate that fact. And, we need to try to practice Islam, in the best way wherever we are. Because at this point in time, there is no real country that can say it is an Islamic state. We don't have any Islamic states that you can just go to, and travel. You go to the Muslim world and they say, where's your visa? Ta'shira. Come yom. How many days? Say, come yom, I'm a Muslim. My ta'shira is la ilaha illallah. Why are you asking me for a visa? But no, they want visas, man. And if your visa is up, out. You know, so this is the reality. So wherever we are, you know, we need to practice Islam wherever we are. Not because whether you're in a Western country or an Eastern country, we practice, you know, wherever we are. You know, there was a person in Canada, in Toronto, a sister came to me and she was very upset. And she said that there was, in the sisters section, which was on the second floor, that, you know, this brother was up by the sisters section. And it was Jumu'ah. So one of the sisters went to this person. She was coming in and she saw this person. She said, go down, why don't you go to the brothers, man? What are you doing here? And he said, I don't have to make Jumu'ah. She said, why? She says, because, and this is real. I mean, I don't know if there's something wrong with him, but this is what he said. He said, I don't have to make Jumu'ah because, you know, I'm not in my country, and because I'm not in my country, I can't have tahara. I can't have wudu. So I don't have to make Jumu'ah. So he thinks that if he only in the Muslim country, he can make tahara, he can make wudu, and he can make salat, and then anytime he's outside. So what does that mean, man? So what happens if you die outside of the Muslim world? Innal arda lillahi. The verse says the whole earth is Allah's. Anywhere on the earth you are, you can make salat. That is the difference between us, or one of the differences between us and the other nations. Another question is saying, if I won a prize of money, that I got it by luck, can I accept it? I never went near gambling and never thought of it. You see, everybody has a test. And your test is really shaped and measured for you, as well as mine is shaped and measured for me. And one day, wallahi, I received this thing, and it said, Mr. Abdullah Hakim, quick, you have won a prize, and I want you to come down to the hotel and pick it up. Come and pick it up, man. And we will give you a prize, and if you answer the right question, you might get a free trip to Hawaii and a new Toyota. And so they said, I won this prize, man. And really, my nafs was saying, no, astaghfirullah, you know, he's going to ask you a question, you know, whatever, maybe this is not. No, man. The things that are by chance, you throw the dice, you know, you roll the numbers, you know, whatever like that, this is not Islamic, man. That we should be, you know, you can, with skills, you run a race, everybody puts down $5, the winner of the race takes all of the money. But you don't stand on the side and say, I put $5 on Zaid because he's big and he's going to win the race. No, that's gambling. So in any form, we need to try to avoid this because this is a test. It says, you highlighted the importance of the need for Islamic unity. What is your opinion in terms of the Quran and the Sunnah in the setup of the Islamic Cooperation Society to help remedy the problems of the Islamic unity? Definitely, the basis of unity would be the Book of Allah and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. If a person is not underneath these two things, then it's very difficult to unite Islamically with that person. Because the Prophet ﷺ said, I have left you two things. If you follow them, you will never go astray. And that is the Book of Allah and my Sunnah and my way. So these are the only two things that he left that we would never go astray by following. It is the basis of our faith, and it should be the basis of the unity. Now there may be varying understandings, you know, within the Book of Allah and within the Sunnah. And we need to have adab al-ikhtilaf, that we need to have the etiquettes of differing. If we differ with somebody, you need to differ with politeness, and we need to look at the adillah, the dalil that is there, and we need to have respect for other people and their opinions. And if they disagree, you know, even if you're right, then you say alhamdulillah, you make dua for the person, leave them, man. Okay, maybe Allah would guide them to the truth. And so you need to try to make a unity, but you have to remember that Hudhayfa ibn Yaman radiallahu anh, he said to the Prophet ﷺ in a long hadith, something to the effect of, and it's going as a long hadith, and at the end of it he said, what should we do in the time of, you know, fitna? And the Prophet peace upon him said, go to the imam and go to the jama'ah. And he said, what if there's no imam and no jama'ah? He said, then in that case, you know, you should cling on to the roots of a tree. Go by yourself. Hang on to your faith until you meet Allah in that state. So if the Muslims are all divided and there's no jama'ah, no imam, we still have to stay on the path as though we were Ibrahim alayhi salam. One ummah. Each person has to have that inside of themselves. Another question is coming from a non-Muslim perspective. What do you answer as a Muslim if he says to you, where are non-Muslims going after death? We have to always remember that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah is the creator. He is the one who will judge and not us. And, those people who have followed the prophets of different nations, whether it's Moses, whether it's Jesus, other prophets, peace be upon them, they are considered to be those who submitted to Allah. Okay? Also, the Quran says, وَلَقَدْ بَعَثْنَا فِي كُلِّ أُمَّةٍ رَسُولًا أَنْ يَعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَاجْتَنِبُوا الطَّاغُوتَ. We have sent to every nation a messenger, that they would worship Allah and stay away from false gods. So amongst the Aboriginal people in Australia, amongst the indigenous or Aboriginal people in Africa, in South America, the Aboriginal people in Europe, all tribes, all nations, China, everybody received the Prophet. And that if a person is following Tawheed, oneness of God, and they did not receive the message of Islam clearly and directly, then they are under the mercy of Allah. If he pleases, he will punish them. If he pleases, he will forgive them. That is out of our hands. If the person has gotten the message directly and they refuse to accept that message, then the Quran shows us that they will receive a painful punishment in the next life. But we are not the ones who judge people. Our job is only to deliver the message. And people must choose the message. La ikraha fi din, qad tabayyana rushdu min al-ghayy. There is no compulsion in religion. Truth stands clear from falsehood. Another question is saying, brother, what do you think about the many European people who see oppression and stand up to guard it with their lives, and it goes on with different points. What about the people who are protesting against the situations in the world? We have to realize that oppression and deception is not based upon any particular color. That it can be found in any color, in any race, in any nation. And with that as a basis, with right and wrong is the basis. It's not based on tribe. And this is one of the blessings of Islam, that it spread to all different nations, all different types of people. And it was shocking for people in South Africa, so far away from the Muslim world, to realize, these old anthropological definitions of race. They used to say Caucasoid, Mongoloid, Negroid, right? They're describing people. They give these old type of definitions. And the Caucasian people, or the European people, the people of Chechnya, who are still waging a struggle against the Soviet communist oppression. They have been Muslims over 1,200 years. And they are pure white Caucasian people. Blonde hair, blue eyes. Their roots in Caucasian culture is probably one of the purest roots, if you go back to the actual basis of European culture. But they're Muslims. So it's not based upon color. It's not based upon race. And that has to be our basis, because other people are basing things on color. They're basing it on race. And we should not use those definitions. But if the people are wrong, they're wrong. I don't care what color they are, or how powerful they think they are, or what language they speak. It says, okay, that's the same question. Yeah, it said, brother, while the problems are going on for Muslims, is it better to go in jihad or study Islam? Because jihad is fard ayn, or should I study, or what should I do? There's a few questions concerning jihad. Now, we have to realize that the definitions that are coming in the newspapers, when they use the word jihad, they are saying holy war. Okay? But we know that the word jihad from the juhud, or you're struggling, you're exerting yourself, and that this struggle is in all different forms. There is even a jihad which is inside of the person, jihad al-nafs, which is not necessarily the greatest jihad. That's a weak hadith that said that that's the greatest jihad. But there's an internal jihad, which is a very strong, powerful one. And we have to go to this jihad every day. That's a struggle to choose between right and wrong. And that is a form of jihad. There's a jihad that goes on in your house. There's a jihad in your community. When you clean up, when you stand against evil in any form, that is jihad. There is also jihad bil mal. There's also a struggle with your wealth, right? Where you can actually, support people who are struggling in jihad. You can even hold back your wealth, which we'll be talking about, which is like boycott, things like that. So there's many different ways of struggle. There is also a form of the struggle when people are attacking you and fighting you. You stand up and you fight and you defend yourself. And there's nothing wrong with that. Every nation in the world, says our heroes, they have Memorial Day. Do you have Memorial Day here in Australia? So you have an unknown soldier. About those soldiers, for instance, who fought in World War II and, against the Japanese or whatever it is they'll say here in Australia, right? So every country has that. So there's nothing wrong with Muslims also feeling proud about the people who have died in the path of Allah, and also be prepared to stand up to defend their rights. This is a God-given right to every human being. And it is agreed upon even in the United Nations and other things like that. You have the right to resist occupation. So that this is nothing which is, special. And, but we have to realize that if you see evil, as the Prophet ﷺ said, change it with your hands. If you can't do that, say something. If you can't do that, then feel it in your heart. And that is the weakest form of faith. So in terms of the struggles that goes on in the Muslim world, it's not always proper for Muslims to necessarily personally go inside that struggle. Because you may make it worse in the struggle than for the people who are there in the struggle. You want to go into jihad in a country where it's snowing outside. There's some brothers in South Africa. They want to go up, in the mountains in Chechnya, whatever, the Soviets. Okay, man. I said, have you ever seen snow before? He said, no. I said, you have never seen snow before, and you want to go up there. Okay, and they're living in the snow. They sleep in the snow. Okay, you want to struggle in jihad? I said, it's a cold night, it was raining out. I said, take this blanket and go sleep outside on the sidewalk. And wake up tomorrow morning and tell me how you feel. Okay? Then you will see whether you really want to go out there. You're not necessarily prepared to do that. Right? But you can make dua, you can support people and other things. So there's different levels of struggle, and you need to see where you fit in. But the point is that if we see evil, that we should try to do something, some sort of resistance to the evil that is around us. The other question is saying, what is your advice in seeking authentic knowledge? In a country like Australia where the scholars are scarce, or in a Muslim country, what should we possibly do? Well, we should try to seek knowledge wherever we possibly can. And really, you'll be surprised to know, if we get serious about learning Arabic, if we get serious about the basis of hadith, there's enough knowledge right here, We tend to want to be great scholars and we won't take the first step. Right? First start learning how to read Fusha Arabic properly. Try to learn your vocabularies. Try to learn the basic grammars. Start to learn to read the Quran properly with tajweed. Also start to learn hadith. Go to learn your basic things. And then inshallah, there are different cities and parts of the world where you can get a lot of knowledge. There's a lot of problems in the Muslim world. But still there are places like I've been told, there's many brothers and sisters who are in Damascus now. And they say there are a lot of good scholars in Damascus that are around. And it's fairly safe in the sense you can come in there, get some knowledge, and you can leave. So there are still places like that in the Muslim world. Where you can seek knowledge, with the right struggle. There are a number of questions concerning unity itself. And concerning the issue of unity, like I said, we need to work towards this. And there is no set way that we gain unity, but we need to try to unite with other people. And the best way, I believe, to unite is not just talk, but it is action. That we try to do things together. You try to struggle together, doing positive things. One thing I'd like to say, we may talk about it more. We were talking today with the children about the environment. You know that the struggle to clean up the environment is one of the most dangerous issues facing human beings today? A lot of Muslims don't know that, man. And do you know that if we are struggling to clean up the environment, that we are actually doing something Islamic? Because we believe it is Allah, it is the Creator who made this environment. And if we preserve it, if we protect it, if we clean it up, then we are actually doing a positive thing in Islam. And the Prophet ﷺ used to always encourage his followers to plant trees Plant trees. Even if Qiyamah is coming, plant a tree. Okay, so planting trees, preserving life, cleaning up the environment. These are Islamic actions that we can do. So there are many things that we can do within this society in pointing out the good and forbidding people from evil. And we need to try to unite upon good Quran and Sunnah type attitude and action programs. Another one is saying that I am 18 years old and I'm in a very, very bad situation. And he said that he's dropped out of school and he's failing, he's having problems. And he doesn't know what to do and he's in a bad situation. What I would like to say is that you need to go to some of the groups that have brothers who have been out there. And I know that the Jama'ah, the Isna Jama'ah, has brothers who have been out there, who have been in the streets, so to speak. If you use that language of the streets, right? You say that here, right? Okay, they've been in the streets, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guided them back to the truth. So you need to go to somebody who's been out there, and suffered some hard times, and then Allah guided them to the right path, and then listen, get counseling, man. You need to get counseling, and somebody who can sit with you and spend some time with you, and then show you through example as well as words how to go to the right path. Okay. Another question is, if this world has become a difficult place, okay, that says, why shouldn't we do something about it? Of course, we say that we should do something about it. The other question is that, is it correct to say that we cannot pray Jumu'ah if we have to work? Work is more important. There are people saying this, is this correct? This is ghurur. This is another form of deception. And there was even one of the Muslim countries, I don't like to name countries and individuals, but there was a Muslim country where the head of state actually said, don't fast in Ramadan, do some extra work. Okay? And this is deception. This is the shaitan who is deceiving somebody concerning these issues. Because those things that are the most important are those issues that have been made compulsory upon us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right? They are musharri'. Tashri' comes from the Creator and His Messenger. We do not have the right to dissolve that which has been made compulsory in order to do something else. Okay? So the Jumu'ah is made compulsory for a reason. Our salat is 5 times a day for a reason. And if we look at the weakness of our hearts and the weakness of our lives in this material world, you can see the reason why we need to stop and make prayer. We need to fast. Some of us need to fast 3 or 4 months a year. Right? And not, especially brothers who are not married yet. We need to fast 3 or 4 months per year. And not just in Ramadan. Okay, but alhamdulillah, the Creator is merciful and made fard upon us the days of Ramadan. And so, the Creator knows better than us, what is good for us. And we don't have the right, to try to put our own opinion above the opinion of Allah. Another question is saying that the person suffers from depression and it is caused by Islam and culture. They find it hard to practice Islam because their family came in the way of them. They're dominated by culture. And they even make it difficult. And they treat the person like a stranger. Well, this really is a test. And everybody has their tests. And inshallah, Allah will give you ajr. Will give you a reward, a great reward. For struggling with politeness. Be gentle, but be steadfast in your deen. And you show respect to your parents. But if they try to lead you off the path, like you read in Surah Al-Luqman, try to read Surah Al-Luqman, and then you will see that you obey your parents, but you don't obey them in ma'siyah. If they are taking you to sin, we don't obey them and we don't follow them if they are commanding us to do that which is not from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you need to reach out to other Muslims. And because our real family is within the family of Islam. And so I pray that Allah would make it easy for you in your life. And we need to make dua for this person. And for others who are struggling, with Muslims, who are just cultural Muslims. Another question says, in terms of advice for the young people. For the young people, I believe that the young people more than anybody else are feeling the effects of the globalization. And inshallah, I want to talk more about this tomorrow night, inshallah, about this issue and how it is impacting upon our nation. But in terms of the internet technology, the digital technology, they are really under this pressure a lot. And my advice is, don't spend your time, or the majority of your time, in front of the television. Because they are creating a false world. They are making an illusion, and they have the ability to make it seem real. You need to spend more time traveling in nature, playing sports. You know, look at the real creation of Allah. Don't look at the other false creations. Because if that becomes your, the basis of your world, then you are being taught racism. You are being taught classism. And you're also being brainwashed into being ashamed of yourself, ashamed of your color, ashamed of your language, ashamed of your people. And it is purposely being done. And you know, when you look at these programs too much, that becomes your reality, or that becomes the base in which you judge the rest of the world. But if you spend more time, if not all of your time, you know, looking at the real creations of Allah, then if a TV is in front of you or a movie is in front of you, you can see how shaitanic the thing is. You can see where the lie is, right? So the sitting type things where you're just sitting there and you're an observer, and it's being, this a message is being pumped into your mind. Don't spend that much time in front of that tube. Give it up, right? And go out into nature. Be involved in action-oriented programs, right? So your life can become real and not, you know, like a Hollywood construct. Also, you know, this question of Islam and culture. The young people, you study Islam, study, you know, the Quran, the Sunnah, the first 3 generations, the early generations. Study how they practice, and then you will see the real Islam, okay? Then you can judge what is going on, you know, in later generations, and especially today. And you will see some of the cultural practices that happen within your own family, you know, and you will see, you will be able to start to distinguish between one and another. And this is very important for us, because it seems confusing many times, what is happening in our families. Another question is saying, is there any sin in delivering the newspaper? Okay, I'm not a mufti, you know, actually. And I've never seen this question like this. It depends on the level of the newspaper. I've never seen anybody say that it was haram at like the daily newspapers. Although some of these papers are getting really bad, man. I don't know how the papers are here. But some of the papers in the paper now in South Africa, you know, it would be wrong to deliver that. Because it has naked women on the pages and things like that. So, you know, it's actually a form of filth and propaganda that is being spread. And if that's the case with the newspapers here, then you should try to deliver something else, man. You know, deliver halal, go to the halal restaurant, deliver their food. Right? Or try to deliver, you know, you have delivery skills, right? You can use your delivery skills for something else, other than delivering the newspaper. The question says, what could you tell us about the simple step to go forward to bring the Islamic unity? Okay, these are enshrined in those 10 points that I gave, or those 7 points that I gave. The other question, it said, why did you study Islam in Africa? That's an interesting question. Well, to be honest with you, I studied this partly because of my own desire to understand my roots, okay? And the connection between my family and Muslims. And because many times when new Muslims, when you accept Islam, and I accepted Islam, alhamdulillah, and when you accept Islam, sometimes you feel isolated. And you know, the people say there's new Muslims, there's revert or convert or whatever, and they say there's Muslims born in Muslim families. As though the people born in Muslim families are the authentic, true Muslims. And the ones who accept Islam are like, you know, like we say asli and taqlidi, like one is asli, the original, and the other is an imitation product. You know, they used to say made in Japan, right? But now, you know, people want things made in Japan, right? So asli and taqlidi, you know, you see that really all of the Sahaba, you know, accepted Islam. And there were some of the Sahaba who had drinking problems and killed people and fighting problems. And they had many problems. And they accepted Islam, and they were the best generation. Okay? So if they were the best generation and they accepted Islam, then there is no difference between whether you're born in a Muslim family or not. It is your amal, it is your actions, it's your taqwa. That's the difference, and not necessarily the family that you were raised in. But I found myself in that situation, and so I was interested to know, because we have a thing called roots. We are searching for our roots, right? And our heritage. And so I was searching, and I found out that, you know, when I was first coming into Islam, you know, it was through the study, it was within African history, that in West Africa, many of the great kingdoms there and empires were actually Islamic. Mali and Songhai and cities like Timbuktu and Jenne and all that. These are actually cities of learning, man. Okay? So I found this out, and I became very interested in this. And I found out that over 30% of the people who were captured and taken to America as captured prisoners of war or slaves were actually Muslims. I was shocked to find out that there were ulama in Brazil, in Jamaica, in Haiti, in Trinidad, in Suriname, in the United States, who were writing books in classical Arabic during the slavery period. Okay, so when I found these things out, it became very interesting. And then in terms of da'wah, which I have been involved in all of my life as a Muslim, inshallah hope to be involved in for the rest of my life, that this call of da'wah in America, that if you go to the town, if you go to a university and you say, we're having a program on what is Islam, nobody's going to come, man. Okay, most people, they want controversy or they want something that interests, because they're programmed, right? But if we said we are studying African history, roots, okay, hundreds of people come because they want to know about their roots. And so we show them about Islam on the African continent and the great scholars that were there and the contributions made, and through that we are able to give da'wah. Also, I found that there were great illuminaries, great leaders, great scholars on the African continent. You'll be surprised to know that in the 15th and 16th century, scholars came from Hijaz and they went to Timbuktu, and when they went there, they found a city of 100% Muslims with thousands of books. Just recently, the president of South Africa went to Timbuktu and he visited the city and he found 15,000 books in Arabic, still in somebody's house. 15,000 books in one house and courtyard. Still there, and on science, math, astronomy, medicine, everything is there. At one point, the scholars found over 80 to 90,000 books within the homes in Timbuktu. That's only in this century. It was a great center of learning. And so through this, we were able to understand more about Islam, the beauty of Islam as it was spread in different parts of the world, and also able to give da'wah by using this methodology. It said that, do you recommend that people marry the same culture or intermix? It seems to me that not many people have mixed cultural marriages because they are racists. Okay, that's a heavy question in a sense. You know, really, marriage, as we know, should be based upon the deen. And you know that the Prophet ﷺ has told us very clearly that you should marry for four things. That you know, you should marry for wealth, marry for genealogy, nasab. You know, you can marry also for beauty, but you should marry for deen, and then you'll be successful. Okay, it's a base rough translation of the hadith. So there's these four categories that you look at when we're dealing with marriage. Okay, but some people, they put nasab as number one, and everything is the family and the genealogy. Okay, some people say to their young daughter or son in cultural Islam, they say to them, do what you want to do. Go to college, play around, do anything, but when you're ready to get married, you're going to marry your cousin. And that's it. You're going to marry your cousin. Okay? This is not the way of the Prophet ﷺ. And one of the blessings in the fact that he was allowed to marry so many times, he broke down all types of barriers. He married somebody who was not his tribe, not his color. Right? A woman who was divorced before, a woman who was previously from a Jewish family. Right? He married her. So he broke down all the artificial barriers that we have in our minds. Okay? He broke down all of those barriers. And so these barriers, you know, these things should not be the basis of the marriage. I'm not saying that you shouldn't take it into account. There are sections in kafa'ah or where you are judging, you should judge based upon these things. You should ask about somebody's family. You should ask about their wealth. You know, if the brother wants to marry you, sisters, make sure he's got a job, man. You know, if he says, yes, I'm marrying you on Quran and Sunnah, all I have is Quran and Sunnah. Okay, mashallah, but you gotta have a house, man. You gotta have a job, right? You gotta have a job. Okay? So these are factors that we have to get involved in. And I would say that really when a community, when you come to a jama'ah in a city that has all types of Muslims, and you see in the mosque or the gathering there's only one type of people, something's wrong. Okay? When you see a mixed gathering such as this, you know something's going right. It's Islamic. Because Islam is supposed to bring together all nationalities, all groupings. It's supposed to bring it together. And that is one of the blessings of people in America who are very mixed up. You know, they have mixed genealogies, right? Like myself, right? So you have African, you have European, and you have native Indian, right? Indian, Mohawk tribe, and you have all types of things in your blood. You know, so you don't worry about these issues. All of us are from Adam, and Adam is from dust. The next question is saying, please, I need, it's saying that, is it allowed to get the nationality of a non-Muslim country, and I don't intend to live here, but you know, I want to get medical benefits. Am I deceiving the society and whatnot? We have to be honest with what we are saying to people. And really what happened in Canada, unfortunately, is that some Muslims came to Canada and they came and they actually deceived the society. They came and they had welfare under 4 or 5 different names, you know, and they had jobs. And some of them were even sending their wives, وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ, down to the social welfare office. And she comes in full hijab and she reports and she says, I'm not married. And so the people say, you're not married, okay? And you're a Muslim? She says, yes, I'm a Muslim. They say, okay, we'll sign you up. 10 months later, she comes with a baby, right? And she's still collecting her check. So the person says, what happened to you? You are holy people. Then where'd you get the baby from if you're not married? Right? So she has to lie to the people and say, I'm not married. And really in Sharia, I'm not a mufti. But if you're making statements like that, this is serious, man. You're telling people I'm not married. You're swearing that you're not married. Okay? And when you swear oaths like this, even if it is to the kafirun, you're not in a hot war where somebody's going to shoot you and kill you if you are the brothers over there or over there. And if the brothers were over there, I'd say, they're over there, sir. Right? I can lie like that. But can you lie because you want extra money to buy leather coats or to buy new cars? That's not right. That's not right, man. And we shouldn't take advantage of anybody. Right? And it is through our good character and our honesty that Islam spread in Southeast Asia and in many parts of the world. No armies came into Southeast Asia, but it was good merchants who had good character, honesty, justice. That's what spread Islam. And so we should set an example, you know, of honesty and justice. And the group that we were in, Allah knows best, the Imams Council in Canada, you know, said, especially for people who were in very dire situation, if the person had to take the oath to the country in order to be in the country, there's nothing wrong with that. You know, you have to take it. It's something that you have to do. But, you know, our ultimate allegiance is to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is the reality. Another question is saying, okay, so describe the deception that Muslims had toward Christians and other people, the lack of forgiveness and understanding and harboring of bad feelings. Okay? One of the deceptions, or one of the wrong understandings that Muslims had in dealing with Christians and Jews and other people of the book is that, you know, Islam is a way of life. And I found out that when I accepted Islam, that I was practicing a lot of Islam already. I was already doing that. Because the same principles of being honest and being good and trying to have a family and to get married and to eat good food, I was already doing it, man. I stopped drinking alcohol before I was a Muslim. I stopped taking drugs before I was a Muslim. I stopped eating pork before I was a Muslim. So there are many things that I was already doing, but Islam now, as the last message, it gives you the clear explanation for the things that the people of the book have lost. Because the scriptures of the people of the book have been confused. And so Islam gives the right direction. But Muslims, Islam, when you accept Islam, you accept it not for Muslims. You accept it for Islam, for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is the true guidance. And so you find that many people, who are not Muslims have many characteristics of Islam. Also Tawheed, many people already have the oneness of God. And you find it in many of the cultures. So this is how you need to look at the people when we are dealing with the people coming from other cultures. Is that we are not the only people who believe in one God. We're not the only people who tell the truth. We're not the only people who try to eat clean things. Other people do that just as much as us. But we are blessed with the last messenger who gives the complete message. The clear message is here. The revelation is here in the original language. That's what we have. And this is what has helped us not to go astray like the other nations. Because we still have the book, we still have the sunnah, and we can go back around in the circle, back up to the top. And this is what has blessed us, not we Muslims ourselves. Because if it was just us, we would have been gone a long time ago, man. We would have been gone 500 years ago. But Allah is the one who raises up people. And many of the people who accept Islam actually turn out to be the leaders of Islam. Right? And this has happened throughout our history, throughout Islamic history. It says that said the sister saying, I was jealous of a girl, a beautiful girl, of her beauty and everything. And she said, I know it's haram, but I can't help it. She's just too beautiful, man. I can't help it. Okay. This is a very honest question, man. It's real. But what you have to understand is that real beauty is not just in the physical, the outward part of the person. The real beauty in the person is their character and their taqwa. These are the things that really makes a person beautiful. And our beauty, our physical self changes over time, right? And everybody will change. Okay, so if you see beauty in something else or somebody else, you say, Alhamdulillah, Allah blessed and tested that person with beauty. Because sometimes a beautiful woman today really in this world is in trouble, man. Because there's all types of what you call peeping Toms and Johns and all type of things chasing. A beautiful woman is chased down the street. Everyone's looking at her. Her life is a fitna in the society that we live in today. So you need to look at all of these things and to realize that beauty is not just, the skin. It's not just the physical feature of the face, right? Or the thinness of the waist or whatever. But really the beauty is in the heart. That is where the real beauty of a person is. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you that beauty. I'm sure you have the beauty, but you don't really know it, right? But because they have this fable they used to say about mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the most beautiful person of all. And they also say like, the grass is always greener in the other fellow's yard. Right? That's what we used to say. So his grass is always greener than, that's the shaitan. Wal-iyadu billah. And he uses this, he always tells you, I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not, and this happens to people. And this culture does it to people. Look at Michael Jackson. You see what happened to Michael Jackson? He was a strong young man. Look at him when he was young. And look what he did to himself. He ruined his face, he ruined his skin, he made his hair fall straight, he broke his nose and tried to make it bigger. He put up his cheeks, right? He had some strange dream that he was Elizabeth Taylor or Diana Ross or something like this. And so he transformed himself. He's not satisfied with himself. This is ghurur. It's deception. He is deceived. He had everything in the world going for himself, but he's not satisfied. You see? That's the essence of deception. So we need to look inside at ourselves for other aspects other than just physical beauty. It says you speak about they're also saying you speak about unity, and I begin by saying this person's a teacher and they want to instill Islamic awareness in the youth. What can they do to help really in the school situation? What would you do if you were a teacher in these difficult times? really, in the Islamic school especially, the teacher's job is crucial. And really, the teacher is the front lines. And I have spoken to teachers in many Islamic schools because really they underestimate the importance of their job. Because when that teacher is teaching the student, that teacher actually represents the messenger of Allah. Because you can't see the Prophet ﷺ. Even deeper than that, you can't see Allah. So that person, in a sense, represents everything in Islam to that child. So you are holding a great amana in your hand. You see, and really, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bless you greatly for trying in any way that you possibly can to instill the character. So we all need to upgrade ourselves. We need to study the work of great scholars, study the hadith, and try to raise our taqwa, raise our consciousness, so we can try to give this to the youth in the best way that we possibly can. Another question is saying, I'm an Australian from a Christian background who is extremely intrigued by Islam and hope to grow in learning more about it. What is the best way to go about this? I would say that it's important for anybody to study, read, study, meet people. You don't have to believe everything that everybody says, okay? But you need to stay. But to really study Islam, go back to the root sources. Look in the book of Allah in the Quran. Read the life of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And it was really for me, in my travels, I had met Muslims doing all types of strange things. But when I got the Quran itself and I read it, and I began to read the life of the Prophet ﷺ, I said, this is the person who I want to follow. That's him. And the way he acts, the way he treats people, the way he struggles, this is the character, this is the personality. And this is what you need to really do at this time, to focus on this, on the principles of Islam, and to try to get different opinions from the Muslims. But if you feel something in your heart, then you should act upon that as soon as possible. Another question which is very similar to it, which I want to read right away, it is saying that that there's even a person who's feeling about reverting to Islam, right? But they wanted to do it by themselves and only do it by themselves. Okay, really, Islam is not an organization. So when you accept Islam, you're not signing on the dotted lines, right? It is something that you do, it's between you and Allah. But the Muslims bear witness to this. And it does not have to be in a large crowd of people. It can be with one or two people it can be, right? But you should have somebody who can help you say the words properly, right? And to make sure your understanding is correct. And also to bear witness to the fact that you have come in. This is very important. And if you want to do it tonight, I would humbly advise you and encourage you that if you have that feeling, you should act upon it immediately. Because only Allah knows how long that we'll live. You should bear witness to the oneness of Allah. If you've come this close, then the shaitan and the forces of evil will try to stop you from coming into Islam. So you should bear witness as soon as possible and realize that you go in stages. Go in stages. You don't have to do everything immediately. But you learn your faith properly, and then you begin to learn different aspects of Islam and you put it into your life, and then you move in stages up. Right? You don't have to do everything right away. And it is even permissible that if your family was too strict, right, you don't have to announce it to all your relatives and all your family immediately. Okay? But, of course, it is encouraged that as soon as possible, when you can explain it properly, that you would explain it in politeness to your family members, or you would have somebody who could explain that, to come to the house and explain it to your family, what Islam really is. So they can see that it's not this terrorist thing on TV, and, it's not a cult where you're brainwashed, like, with Moonies or whatever, you're in these different, it's not anything like this. Okay? And, but whatever feelings you have, may Allah guide you and bless you, and may He lead you into Islam as soon as possible. It is also saying, in terms of the best way of avoiding deception, as I said, it's important for us to strengthen our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it is important to us to humble ourselves and to always remember our position with Allah and to investigate. Don't just accept things, especially coming from television, especially from the media. Don't accept everything for face value. You must investigate. And when I was in the history department, in the University of Toronto, one of the good things that they taught within this department is that when you are studying an issue, try to go to primary sources. Always try, as we say in America, take it from the horse's mouth. Go to the source. And if, for instance, somebody's studying about a battle that happened, don't just study the position of the winner of the battle. What happened to the losers? What happened to the people who were watching the battle and whose house got ruined by these crazy people fighting each other? Get the opinion of all different types of people. Then you understand the phenomena in the proper way. What is happening today is that people take only from one source, right? And then they form their opinion, and they don't go to primary sources to understand issues from the people themselves. This is why it is important for us as Muslims to go to the society, to go to the public, reach out to the people, and explain to them what is Islam, man. So they won't think that Muslims are just these terrorists blowing up the building, and Arnold Schwarzenegger's against us, and Chuck Norris, and Steven Seagal, and everyone in the world is chasing us now, right? Everyone's chasing us, man. Right? Or Aladdin and the lamp, and all this other stuff, right? Or we're blowing up buildings, we're destroying the world. This is the hype. This is the hype, right? This is another illusion which is being created in order to cover the minds of people from the beauty of Islam and what we have to offer to the world. Especially in this time of racism, this time of economic exploitation, this time of perversion. We have a lot to really, give to the world. But one of the first things that we need to do is to deal with deception in ourselves. That we can protect ourselves from the plots of the evil one happening within our own hearts and our own lives. And if we begin to do this, inshallah, then maybe Allah would make us vessels of the truth. That Allah would make us deserving and worthy to hold the banner of Islam in these times. Only Allah decides when it is time for Muslims to have authority. But He has promised us, if we believe, if we have patience, He will eventually give us authority on this earth. And the Prophet ﷺ has told us this message will enter every single home. One day, inshallah, this message will go all around the world and it will enter every single home. وَلَوْ كَرِهَ الْكَافِرُونَ وَالْمُشْرِكُونَ وَالْمُنَافِقُونَ. Even if they hate it, this is the word of Allah. It's not our words, man. It's like a fool trying to blow out the sun. You can't blow out the sun. If you gather together all the people in the world and you blew at the sun, you'll never put out the light of Allah. No matter how many people you try to kill, or you try to hurt or disgrace, you will never put out the light of Allah. And Allah has raised up people in the past, and inshallah, He is capable and has shown us in His book that He is willing to raise up believers. But let us take the first step. Inna Allah la yughayyiru ma biqawmin hatta yughayyiru ma bi anfusihim. Allah will not change the condition of a people until they change that which is in themselves. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر وصلى الله تعالى على سيدنا محمد وآله وصحبه أجمعين وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله.